Someone tried to go silent because they believed distance would help them forget you. But what they did not understand is that your energy was never something they could simply walk away from. The silence was supposed to be their doorway out. Instead, it became the room where your presence echoed the loudest. Here at Astral Card Vault, the first card showing itself is the Fool. And symbolically, this card speaks of someone standing at the edge of the unknown, pretending they are free, pretending they are light, pretending they can step forward without looking back. But there is something very important here. The Fool may walk away, but he still carries the unseen weight of the journey. He may look toward the sun, toward a new path, toward a version of life that feels simpler, but the little bag over his shoulder holds everything he has not processed. And for this person, one of the things they carried with them was you. They thought if they stopped speaking, the feeling would fade. They thought if they stopped checking your name, stopped replying, stopped explaining, stopped showing emotion, then eventually the bond would loosen. They may have told themselves, I just need space, I just need time, I just need to move forward. But what they did not expect was that silence did not make your energy disappear. Silence made it clearer. Because when there are no messages, the mind starts replaying old ones. When there are no conversations, the heart starts remembering the tone of your voice. When there is no access to you, their nervous system begins to notice the absence. Not in a loud dramatic way at first, but in small moments. A song, a place, a phrase someone says, a color, a scent. A quiet evening when everything slows down and suddenly there you are again, appearing in the space they thought they had emptied. And this is where the energy becomes very interesting. The Fool is not just about walking away. It is about stepping into a lesson before understanding what the lesson is. This person may have believed they were choosing freedom, but emotionally, they were walking straight into recognition. They went silent to regain control, but the silence began revealing what control could not erase. The truth is, silence did not free them. It only showed them how deeply your energy had already entered their inner world. And from that quiet realization, the next card rises as the Tower. This is powerful, because the Tower does not always speak about something loud happening outside. Sometimes it speaks about the quiet collapse inside a person when the story they were telling themselves can no longer hold together. This person may have tried to build a wall out of silence. No messages, no explanations, no softness, no reaching. They may have believed that if they could make everything look calm on the outside, then eventually their emotions would obey. But the Tower shows that something inside them did not obey. Something inside them started shaking. At first, it may have been small. A song playing in a store that pulled them back to a moment with you. A street they passed that reminded them of a conversation. A name that sounded like yours. A phrase someone used that felt too familiar. A random smell in the air that brought back a memory they had no plan to revisit. They could be doing something completely ordinary. Something simple. Something that should have had nothing to do with you. And suddenly your energy was there. Not because you were forcing it, not because you were chasing them, but because some connections leave an imprint in the nervous system. Some people are not remembered only by the mind. They are remembered by the body, by the silence, by the atmosphere of certain places. And this is where the Fool's journey becomes the Tower's realization. They thought walking away would lead them into a clean new path, but the path was not clean. It was covered in echoes. Everywhere they turned, there was something that carried a trace of you. Not always your face, not always your name. Sometimes it was just the feeling of you. The way you made certain moments feel warmer. The way your presence made things feel less empty. The way your energy had a strange way of staying behind after you were gone. They may have avoided certain places because those places felt too loud with memory. They may have skipped certain songs because the lyrics pressed too close to the truth. They may have acted unaffected, but inside, their control was being interrupted by reminders they could not schedule, predict, or silence. But what they did not expect was that the reminders were only the beginning. Because once your energy started showing up in the outside world, it began waking up something even deeper inside them. That deeper stirring moves us into the Knight of Swords, and symbolically, this card carries a very restless kind of energy. This is the part of them that wanted to move fast, think fast, escape fast, decide fast. The part of them that believed if they could just keep moving, they would not have to feel what was still following them. So they may have thrown themselves into motion, work, plans, conversations, errands, scrolling through their phone until their eyes were tired, answering other people quickly while avoiding the one message they actually wanted to send. They may have filled their days with noise because quiet became dangerous. Quiet gave your energy too much room. On the outside, this person may have looked focused, busy, detached, maybe even cold. They may have acted like they had made a clean decision, like they had already placed this connection somewhere behind them. But the Knight of Swords shows a mind that is not still, a mind that keeps rushing forward because stopping would mean facing the truth. And the truth is, they were not as free as they wanted to appear. They may have told themselves, I am fine. They may have told themselves, this is better. They may have told themselves, I do not need to look back. But then the room would get quiet, the phone would be face down, the conversation around them would fade, the world would pause for just a second too long, and there you were again. Not physically and not loudly, but energetically. A thought of you arriving with no warning, a memory cutting through the middle of an ordinary day, the feeling of your presence landing in their chest before they could explain it away. And that is what made this so hard for them, because they could argue with a message. They could ignore a call, they could avoid a place, but they could not fully control what their own mind brought back when everything became still. This person may have tried to make the connection seem smaller than it was. They may have reduced it in their own mind, called it timing, called it confusion, called it something temporary. But silence did not shrink it. Silence gave it sharper edges. The more they tried to outrun the feeling, the more the feeling found them. And this is where the energy becomes very interesting, because they were not only trying to forget you, they were trying to outrun what you awakened in them. And what they were trying to outrun is shown through the Seven of Swords. Symbolically, this card speaks about hiding, avoiding, carrying something away in secret, trying to leave without being fully seen. It does not always mean deception in a harsh way. Sometimes it shows a person who is afraid of their own truth, so they move quietly around it instead of facing it directly. And that is what this silence begins to reveal. This person may not have gone quiet because they felt nothing. For some of you, they went quiet because they felt more than they were prepared to admit. They may have sensed that if they stayed close to you, if they kept talking, if they kept allowing the connection to breathe, something inside them would have to become honest. And honesty can feel threatening to someone who has built their safety around control. So they took their swords and slipped away. They took their thoughts, their excuses, their unfinished feelings, their pride, their fear. They carried all of it into silence and hoped that distance would protect them from the vulnerability you brought out in them. But distance became a shield that turned into a mirror. The more they tried not to look at the connection, the more they had to look at themselves. Why did your presence affect them so strongly? Why did your absence feel so loud? Why did your softness, your intensity, your way of seeing through things make them feel exposed? This is not about blaming them. This is about understanding the emotional pattern. Some people do not run because there is nothing there. They run because something there feels too real. They may have feared needing you. They may have feared being known by you. They may have feared that if they admitted you mattered, they would no longer be able to control the pace, the outcome, or the story they were trying to tell themselves. So instead of saying, "Yet this scares me," they said nothing. Instead of saying, "I do not know how to hold this," they disappeared into distance. But the emotional root was never addressed. The distractions did not reach it. The busyness did not calm it. The silence did not dissolve it. It only covered it for a little while, like a blanket over something still breathing underneath. And the part they did not calculate was this: the more they denied the feeling, the more specific the memories became. After trying to slip away from you, the Two of Swords shows how they became trapped inside their own mind. And symbolically, this card speaks about the mind trying to block what the heart already knows. It is the image of someone sitting still, arms crossed, eyes covered, trying to hold everything in balance by refusing to look too closely. And this is exactly where those memories begin to sharpen. Because when someone tries not to feel, the feeling does not always disappear. Sometimes it becomes more detailed. They may begin remembering the exact sound of your voice. Not just that you spoke to them, but the way your words landed, the pauses, the softness, the timing, the way you could say something simple, and somehow it stayed with them longer than they expected. They may remember your laugh in moments when they are trying to be serious. They may remember the look in your eyes when you understood something they did not fully explain. They may remember how it felt to be around you, even if they never admitted that feeling out loud. The calm, the pull, the intensity beneath ordinary conversations, the strange safety of being near someone who seemed to feel more than they said. The Two of Swords shows this inner refusal. It is not that they do not remember. It is that they do not know what to do with the remembering. First, they tried to escape the feeling by leaving it outside of them. But now, the feeling is inside their own thoughts, inside the quiet, inside the pause before sleep, inside the space where logic can no longer fully protect them. So they sit with it, they push it down, they try to make a logical decision around something that was never only logical. They may replay conversations and hear what they missed the first time, a sentence from you that carried more meaning than they understood, a moment when you were trying to be open and they answered too quickly, a silence between you that now feels heavier than it did back then. They may think of things they wish they had said differently, things they wish they had not hidden behind pride, things they wish they had handled with more care. And sometimes, this can even show up in dreams. Not always dramatic dreams. Sometimes just your presence, your face, your energy. A feeling of being close again, then waking up with that emotional chord still humming quietly in the background. What makes this powerful is that these are not random memories anymore. They are becoming recognition. They are beginning to understand that your energy was not just part of a chapter they closed, it was part of something inside them that never fully closed. What they are finally realizing is that they did not only miss your presence, they missed who they became when your energy was near. And that realization opens the doorway to the Queen of Wands. Symbolically, this card carries a presence that is very difficult to ignore. This is not loud chasing energy. This is not begging energy. This is the energy of someone who stands in their own warmth, their own fire, their own knowing, and somehow becomes unforgettable without trying to be. And that is what your energy did to this person. They thought they were leaving you behind, but really, they were leaving behind a version of themselves that only seemed to come alive around you. Maybe they felt more honest when they were speaking to you. Maybe they felt softer, even if they tried to hide it. Maybe they felt seen in a way that made them uncomfortable, because you were not only looking at what they showed on the surface, your energy reached into places they usually keep guarded. The Queen of Wands does not force someone to look. She simply is. And that is the part that stayed with them. Not just what you said, not just what happened between you, but the way your presence made the room feel different. The way your attention made them feel important and exposed at the same time. The way your confidence, your sensitivity, your warmth, or even your silence made something inside them respond. What followed them was not just memory, it was recognition. They may have started asking themselves why they felt more alive near you, why certain conversations with you felt more real than conversations they were having with others, why your absence made other things feel flatter, why, even when they were surrounded by people, a part of them still felt pulled back toward the emotional atmosphere you created. And this is where their ego begins arguing with their heart. The ego says, do not go back. Stay in control. Do not admit this affected you. But the heart says, something about them was different. The ego says, you can replace this feeling. But the heart knows when something was not easily replaceable. The ego says, keep moving. But the heart keeps turning around. This is why silence became uncomfortable, because without you there, they were left alone with the version of themselves that your energy awakened, the softer version, the braver version, the version that wanted to feel but did not know how to stay open. And when the ego starts losing that argument, the signs begin to show on the outside. Those outside signs are brought into focus by the devil, but in a grounded way. Symbolically, this card is very important here, because it does not have to mean something dark or extreme. In this kind of reading, the devil can speak about mental attachment, temptation, unresolved desire, and the pull that someone tries to deny while still feeling tied to it. And this is where you may start seeing the signs. For some of you, this person may still be watching from a distance, quietly, carefully, not always making themselves known, but still circling your energy in small ways. They may view something and say nothing. They may check in without reaching out. They may notice a post, a name, a change, a detail, and pretend to themselves that it means nothing. But the very fact that they keep looking says something their silence is trying not to say. This can show up as small movement after a long pause, a reaction that feels too casual, a message that says very little on the surface, but carries more underneath. A simple hope you're doing well. A memory brought up out of nowhere. A question they did not need to ask. An appearance in a place where their energy suddenly feels closer again. And with the devil here, the important part is not to romanticize unhealthy attachment. The important part is to notice the pattern with clear eyes. This person may still feel tied to the connection, but they may not know how to approach it in a clean, honest, emotionally mature way yet. So the energy comes out indirectly. They act casual, but something feels loaded. They speak lightly, but there is tension under the words. They may try to sound normal, but you can feel that normal is not really what is happening. They may become warmer after silence, then pull back again because warmth exposes them. They may come near the edge of honesty, then retreat into control. They may want access to your energy without fully admitting what that access means. And that is why your discernment matters here. Because hidden feelings are not the same as consistent action. Watching is not the same as showing up. Missing you is not the same as being ready. A pull is not the same as a promise. A sign is not the same as emotional maturity. But still, these signs reveal that the silence was not empty. Something has been moving beneath it. The devil shows the unresolved chord they tried to ignore, the energetic pull they tried to call nothing, the attachment they tried to cover with distance. But even if they come in casually, the energy underneath it may not be casual at all. And that hidden energy now moves into the Eight of Cups, showing the cost of walking away. Symbolically, this card carries the energy of leaving something that still holds feeling. It is not the energy of someone who left because everything was empty. It is the image of someone turning their back while the cups are still standing behind them, still full of memory, still carrying what was not fully spoken. And that is why this silence may be starting to crack. Because there is a difference between leaving something because it means nothing and leaving something because it means too much and you do not know what to do with it. This person may have walked away from the conversation, from the closeness, from the emotional pressure of the connection. But the cups were still there. The feelings were still there. The unfinished words were still there. For some of you, this is not simply about the act of leaving anymore. This is about what leaving has cost them internally. They may have gained distance, but lost the ease of pretending. They may have gained silence, but lost the comfort of being able to say they are unaffected. They may have gained control on the outside, but inside, the emotional weight has become harder to carry. For some of you, this is the energy of someone looking at old messages and feeling something shift in their chest. They may scroll back further than they expected to. They may pause on a message from you and remember exactly where they were when they received it. They may hover over your name, open the thread, close it again, type something small, delete it, then tell themselves it does not matter. But it does matter more than they want to admit. At night, especially, the silence can become harder for them to hold. The day gives them distractions. The day gives them noise. The day gives them reasons to keep moving. But night has a way of taking away the performance. And in that quiet, they may wonder if too much time has passed. They may wonder if you would even receive them now. They may wonder if their silence created a distance they do not know how to cross. This is where regret can begin to rise. Not always loud, not always dramatic. Sometimes regret sounds like, I should have said more. Sometimes it sounds like, I should not have disappeared. Sometimes it sounds like, I did not handle that well. And even if they are not saying these words to you, they may be starting to say them to themselves. The Eight of Cups shows someone who left, but it also shows movement toward emotional truth, because eventually, avoidance can become heavier than honesty. Eventually, silence can stop feeling like protection and start feeling like a burden. And this is where the reading turns, because the silence that once protected them may now be the very thing pushing them back toward honesty. But before anything moves toward you, the Knight of Wands brings the guidance back to you. Symbolically, this card carries movement, desire, impulse, passion, and the urge to rush toward what is pulling the heart. But in this part of the reading, the message is not for you to run after them. It is asking you to notice the difference between movement that is inspired and movement that is restless. Because their energy may be stirred, their silence may be cracking, their feelings may be pushing closer to the surface, but that does not mean you need to chase the sound of the crack. You do not have to prove your worth by reaching first. You do not have to decode every tiny sign until your piece becomes tangled around their hesitation. The Knight of Wands can come in quickly. A sudden message, a sudden spark, a sudden wave of warmth after a long stretch of distance. And for some of you, that may feel exciting. It may feel like the energy is finally moving again. But the deeper guidance here is to stay centered. Let movement reveal itself over time. Let their actions show you whether this is only a moment of emotion or whether it is becoming something more mature. Because real connection cannot survive only on intensity. It needs honesty. It needs consistency. It needs emotional safety. It needs someone who can show up when the feeling is strong, but also when the conversation becomes real. It needs respect, not just longing. It needs presence, not just a sudden flame that disappears when vulnerability gets too close. So stay open, but do not stand still waiting for someone else to decide who they want to be. Care, but do not collapse. Listen to your intuition, but do not ignore what reality is showing you. If they return with softness, let their behavior speak. If they come forward with words, watch whether those words become steady actions. If they show signs of missing you, remember that missing someone is only the beginning. What matters is what they are willing to do with that feeling. Your energy may have followed this person everywhere, but your task is not to run after them and collect the pieces. Your task is to remain in your own center, calm enough to see clearly, strong enough to receive what is real, and wise enough to release what is only half offered. Because what is meant to return in truth will not only return with feeling, it will return with responsibility. And now the final card brings this reading into the Six of Swords. Symbolically, this card carries a very quiet kind of healing. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is not someone forcing a door open. It is movement away from confusion, away from emotional noise, away from the storm of not knowing, and toward a place where truth can be seen more clearly. And this is the closing message of this reading. They tried to leave the connection behind, but something inside them came with it. The Fool stepped forward, believing the path ahead would be simple. The Tower showed that the story they told themselves could not stay standing forever. The Knight of Swords showed the rushing mind, the distractions, the movement, the attempt to outrun the feeling. The Seven of Swords showed the hiding. The Two of Swords showed the inner refusal. The Queen of Wands showed the presence they could not forget. The Devil showed the unresolved chord they tried to deny. The Eight of Cups showed the cost of leaving while still carrying emotion. The Knight of Wands reminded you not to chase what must return with maturity. And now the Six of Swords shows movement toward understanding. This does not mean you need to wait in uncertainty. It does not mean you should ignore what happened. It does not mean that silence is enough or that hidden feelings can replace honest effort. What it means is that something buried may be moving toward the surface. Something unspoken may be becoming harder for them to carry. Something they tried to push into the distance may be quietly returning to their awareness. They went silent to forget you, but your energy followed them into the quiet. They tried to erase the connection, but silence only revealed how deeply it still lived inside them. They tried to convince themselves that distance would make everything simple, but the heart is not always simple. The heart remembers what the mind tries to rename. So for you, the guidance is calm. Watch actions, trust consistency, let truth reveal itself without forcing it. If this person comes forward, let them come forward with clarity, respect, and emotional maturity. Let them show you not just that they feel something, but that they are willing to handle that feeling with care. Because your energy may have followed them everywhere, but your power is in not chasing it. Your power is in remaining steady while what was hidden begins to rise. And if the silence is breaking, let it break into honesty. Let it break into responsibility. Let it break into something real enough to stand in the light.